Day 190 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Chelsea here, and today is another quick update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to the happenings on the ground in Ukraine. And as always, I like to start off with the Russian military losses, so we'll pull those ones up here. And let's have a look. So for the first day of the month, the 1st of September. Now, before I get into these, once again, just to let you know, these are just indicative estimates. Most videos I bring up additional information that supports the accuracy of these numbers displayed here. But in the end, really, there's just no point in contending with the comment trolls. So I won't get into that, at least today. And starting off with the numbers there, Russian military personnel lost in action is sitting at 48,350. And we'll move across down to the Russian military hardware losses, and we'll start off with armored combat vehicles, which have an additional whopping 33 losses there. Tanks are just an enormous 23, and artillery 24, and an extra chopper there as well. And we'll now move back across to the map where again we'll actually look outside of Ukraine into the Russian Federation once again. I'll just turn this into English so you guys can see it just a smidge better there. But in Belgorod, so the city of Belgorod, where a Russian missile launched from Belgorod heading towards Kharkiv and had actually failed. It just fell out of the sky and landed in Belgorod, where it was meant to be leaving. Now, this is meant to be a new generation Russian Iskander missile, so this wasn't to be expected. Some say there might have been an issue with its guidance system, but from the look of this footage, it seems to me like the fuel propellant fizzled out instead. Of course, this reminds me of a Russian missile that boomeranged a couple of months back there as well. Many will surely remember some of this footage here. Now, from time to time, I like to theorize as to why these sorts of things are happening in the Russian military, and it always seems to come back to military contract corruption, where funding is misappropriated away from research and development and instead goes into the back pockets of the oligarchs who secured the military contracts in the first place. But back to the main story here, 3 missiles were fired in total from Belgorod, or attempted to be really. So the second missile failed and exploded in the air over the Kharkiv Oblast, and the last one hit an area near an educational institution in Kyiv. So even with some of Russia's best and most modern military missile technology, I've got to say, that's a 0 in 3 hit rate there. So not that impressive. Now, on that topic, Russia launched 2 S-300 missiles or rocket missiles in the Kharkiv region as well. So now it really needs to be said at this point, the S-300 missile systems, they're actually a Soviet-era air defense system, which is increasingly being used by Russia as a highly inaccurate weapon to hit at land targets, pointing to the Russian shortage of missile stock. And as for these missiles, they didn't hit any Ukrainian military installations either. Then we move across to Melitopol, where 10 explosions were reported outside of occupied Melitopol. So this is in the Zaporizhia Oblast, and we'll zoom in just a smidge here. But the blasts were reported south of the city of Melitopol, right there, by Mayor Ivan Fedorov on Telegram. According to the mayor, Russia had military equipment in the area. But we do also know Russia is transferring military equipment from Melitopol towards Kherson, so as to assist with the recent ground they lost at that location there. And I'll certainly show you guys a little bit of that in just a second also. Now let's move across to the ever-contested Donbass region on the eastern side in the oblast, two oblasts here, so the Luhansk Oblast and the Donetsk Oblast, which make up or comprise of the quote-unquote Donbass region there, where there were some additional strikes in Bakhmut in particular. So if we zoom in there, we'll find Bakhmut, and got to go up a little bit, and there it is. So certainly a village near to the front line that Russia has been looking to take for quite some time now. And again, in this instance, no ground was taken by the Russian forces. In fact, the whole of the Donbass remains fairly the same in recent times, except for a small gain by the Ukrainian forces, at least as far as the last 24 hours are concerned. So we would need to zoom down a little bit to, here it is, the village of Mikilsk. So if I pull up the date map and we can have a look here, so go backwards and forwards, effectively a loss of a grey area. So the removal of the grey area here really signifies that the location or the area is no longer in question, and it is held by the Ukrainian forces there, so certainly under Ukrainian control. Then we move back across to Kherson, the Kherson Oblast and the Kherson front line, where this is where a lot of the publicized action has been at in recent times there. So Ukrainian armed forces continued their offensive operations in Kherson here, supported by intensive long-range strikes against Russian command and logistics locations across the occupied zone. Now, the Russian offensive on this front line here, so the main issue for the Russian soldiers north of the Dnieper River, charged with occupying Kherson, is the attrition and lack of supplies that's taking a toll as Ukrainian strikes make holding Kherson effectively unattainable, particularly on this north bank here. Now, regarding these Ukrainian strikes, I want to show you something here. So something of a photo map. So from August the 29th to August the 31st, 48 HIMARS strikes, of which most you can see were located in the Kherson region there. But effectively what seems to be happening at the moment is Ukraine is solidifying the gains they've made in the previous couple of days or so. Now, in truth, Ukraine wanted to do an even larger offensive on the Kherson front line right there, but they decided to lock in or solidify smaller gains at the outset of the actual offensive there, after performing some strategic wargame assessments alongside a defense branch of the US military. So really, this just means they used military intelligence to confirm what they could take, and then they took it. And then follow up to that, I guess you can say they are solidifying those gains that they've now made. Okay, now I'll move on to some news, although actually, because you did see the chopper in the combat losses before, I'll probably quickly squeeze that one in there. So the Ukrainian anti-aircraft missiles or missile systems downed the Russian helicopter, presumably a Kamov Ka-50, as well as 2 drones in the Donbass region or in the east around there. So yeah, just thought I'd pop that one in there too. And now we'll move across to the news. Ravil Maganov, the chairman of Russia's second largest oil producer, Lukoil, has died after allegedly falling from a window of the Central Clinical Hospital in Moscow. Now, at this point, I've really got to ask the question, is somebody counting how many top managers of Russia's largest companies have died of mysterious deaths in the last half year since the Ukrainian war began? Because there was also Sergei Protosenya, the CEO of Russian energy giant Novatek, found dead in a Spanish hotel during an Easter holiday with his wife and daughter. And a day before that, Gazprom Bank's Vladislav Avev was found dead in his multi-million-dollar apartment in Moscow together with his wife and daughter. Before that was the billionaire Vasily Melnikov, found dead with his wife and 2 sons in his own luxury apartment as well. Then we've got Mikhail Watford. He was a gas magnate, found dead in his home. And this one was just 4 days after the war commenced. So yeah, that was February 28th. We've also got Alexander Subotin, a former top executive of Russian oil company Lukoil as well. He was found dead in a shaman's house, apparently for some reason in very east of Russia. And let's see who else we've got. So we've got Alexander Tulikov, which is or was Gazprom's deputy general director, who hanged himself, or at least that's how the story went there. I should probably clear that up and say that it was said to be designed to look like a suicide. All of these, in fact, murder-suicide in some cases, with the families involved as well, very tragically. And there was another guy as well, but he was just before, in January this year, just before the Ukrainian war commenced there. Leonid Shulman, another one of Gazprom's top managers. Now, even with all of my notes here, I think that I have actually missed some in the mix, but you really start to get the point here. These were all very powerful, very wealthy men that effectively had their fingers on the pulse of the energy and bank sectors of Russia. Particularly, or most of the time, these are privatized sectors. And in many cases, well, really in all cases, wars require these types of institutions for that war machine to run. So we're talking about banks, so financing. We're talking about gas providers, so energy magnates. We're talking about people that need to be, I suppose, controlled or in line with the Russian political narrative to actually enter war and be provided with energy and finances to do so. So much like how Putin likes to install puppet regimes in other countries, it appears like he wants to install puppet company regimes there as well, to have full control over the entirety of Russia in every single way. Anyway, we'll move on from that for the moment and look at something else. So in other news, or actually this next one's a bit more of an informational piece. Now, Ukraine actually has 5 nuclear power plants in total. True story. 4 of them are active, and 1 is actually deactivated. Chernobyl, as you might guess there. And each orange dot here represents the amount of reactors each plant has. And that's probably why you hear Zaporizhia, the nuclear power plant there, as having the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe. And of that, this nuclear power plant accounts for about 20% of Ukraine's electricity usage or needs. But unfortunately, there was a bit of continued shelling in and around the region of the the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant there, so it actually had to shut down that reactor yet again just today. According to Ukraine's state nuclear power operator, Energoatom, on September 1st, emergency protection has been activated and the operational 5th power unit was shut down at the ZNPP. And this is actually all happening around the same time as a delegation of 14 experts from the International Atomic Energy Agency, so the IAEA, headed to the Russian-held nuclear plant, embarking on one of the most complicated missions in its history. And on its way to the power plant, Moscow's forces refused to issue special passes to let the nuclear inspectors through its occupied territories at the checkpoint. So BBC Russia reported that one. Now, they were stuck at the Ukrainian checkpoints, but it looks like in just the last 30 minutes or so of this recording now, they have made it through, but not without issue, and still a bit of a long road to hoe with this one. So we'll see what the outcome is from this delegation. Now, in other news, Poland, Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia have announced that they will prohibit the issuance of visas to citizens of the Russian Federation at the national level. Now, these countries I've all mentioned, won't show it on this map, but it will on this one. They are what's called the Baltic States. You may have heard that before, Baltic States. So let's zoom out, where I've accidentally zoomed in there. And we have, so Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, all these Baltic states as, we've got the Baltic Sea right here. Many of which, or at least half of which, are either really close or fully bordering Russia, in fact, there. Now, on this news topic, Russians will also not be able to cross the border with visas of other EU countries as well. So I'm almost saying this at every day now, every video, but there's always some news coming from the Baltic States or Estonia or Latvia, Lithuania, about them standing up against Moscow or the Kremlin, aka Russia. So really, really good, cool, ballsy moves, considering that they are, two of them of which are, like I say, bordered with Russia there. So the US District Court for the Southern District of Texas authorized the confiscation of a Boeing 737 aircraft, which belongs to Lukoil, that Russian multinational oil and gas company or corporation I mentioned a moment ago, due to sanctions imposed on Russia following its invasion of Ukraine. Now, confiscating things like this, expensive items outside of Russian territory, might be the way that is used to pay back Ukraine for all the destruction that Russia has caused within Ukraine's borders there. This actually reminds me of Germany from World War II. They had some big debts to pay. So I don't know the number, I don't know the date, it's not really critical for what I'm talking about here. But Germany themselves, they only actually finished paying off their debts to the world from World War II, all the destruction that they caused, in about 2011 from memory there. So I really feel like seized Russian assets like planes, real estate, cruise ships, and the like are the way that Russia will pay their debt in the future. And we'll round it all off with a bit of a funny, a little bit of the lighter side of news at least. So a Russian tourist who drove into the adjacent country of Kazakhstan for a holiday did so with a Z sticker on the back of her car. The Kazakhs harassed her and they said, "We don't support the war, go back to your own country," that kind of thing. And the Russian lady was angry that she was getting harassed. I suppose the whole point of a story like this is that Russian propaganda works best within its own borders, and this lady was probably fed the lie that the special military operation is not a war with no loss of life, except for maybe Nazis or something, and she was not happy at all. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching. Please leave a comment, subscribe, hit that like button. Avoid or ignore the trolls where you can, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers.